Welcome back to Citizen Development Live. I'm your host, Neil Miller. Today, our guest is Rachael Jay. She is the Associate Vice President of Marketing and Creative Services at Landmark Properties. Hey, Rachael, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. Very excited to have you on. Your story, I love so much because it reminds me of my own. But we're talking about citizen development. We're talking about how we can get into building your own solutions, and you are one of the perfect people to talk to because that's exactly what you have done. So if you could give us a little bit of background about, and maybe wind the clock back, I think like 7 years or so, whenever you were starting to look for something. So what was it you were looking for?
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit of background on the company that I work for, Landmark Properties. We're a student housing developer. Um, I've been with the company for, I don't know, 13, 14 years now. And I was first introduced to KissFlow, I would say 2015. So at that time, I was heading up a very, very small group of graphic designers.
Mm-hmm.
And we created marketing materials for all of our student housing properties around the nation. And we were really just looking for a solution to help us with incoming requests for any type of marketing materials. At that time, we were using like a Google Sheet, and we were just having a really hard time of tracking this, I guess, stages of where each request was and making sure that I was completed on time.
Did you have like
And
a really huge
also,
sheet with lots of color coding and all sorts of things?
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of color coded cells,
Yep.
and also like if anyone had edits, it was like, how do we
Yeah.
communicate that back? And I honestly don't even remember how I fell upon KissFlow, but it seemed like a great solution for us to kind of set up a more formalized process of putting those requests in, and completing them and making sure that we were like, I guess, checking all the boxes. So,
Yeah. So tell us why, because there's a few other options you might have had. Obviously, you didn't want to stick around and keep using your Google Sheets and stuff that just wasn't going to be sustainable. You couldn't find another solution on the market that you liked. There wasn't like like a pre-built approval thing you had looked for.
um, I mean, honestly, it's a little far back. It's
Yeah.
almost like 10 years now. Um, but I think I looked at probably a few options. I think there was like Asana
Hmm.
um, back then, and probably a few others. But we Kissflow just seemed the best option at the time,
Sure.
and also it was able to provide um, great reporting too.
Hmm.
So
Nice. The other solution a lot of times people will go to is they'll go first to their IT team. So again, dialing back 10 years ago, what was that relationship like? How big was that team? Were they capable of giving you something you needed?
yeah, at that time, I don't think that we had an internal IT team. I think
Hmm.
we've worked very closely with an IT company. Um, but our company was so small at the time that we really didn't have that built out. So our different departments were kind of operating like as silos,
Yeah.
really. And so I really, didn't have those relationships with other departments on what they were using necessarily, or like having an IT department that could do that for me versus me trying to source it and build it and everything. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it's kind of on my own.
Yeah. Well, you're a bit of a unique person because you're a very creative minded person. You're a designer. You are in the creative field, and yet you're also very systematic. You probably built that first Google sheet and thought about how to put it together. So what was the process like of building your own forms, workflows, permissions, all the kinds of things that you need to think about when it comes through? Did you find that it came very naturally for you, or was it difficult to figure out the system?
Yeah, I would say it came naturally for me because I am a little bit more like analytical. I do think that Kissflow, when we, first started using it, and they still do today, but y'all had kind of pre-built templates set
Mm-hmm.
up, and it wasn't like, I don't know, super techy. So I could really just take a template that somewhat seemed close to what I was trying to do and then drag and drop what I wanted to edit, or if there was a field that I wanted to add. It still was helpful visually because it wasn't like I was coding anything
Mm-hmm.
to build out a form. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. So now, do you feel like, would you call yourself a developer on any level, or do you feel like you're just a department head that made something great?
Um, I wouldn't call myself that, but I do think that some of the people around the office that use KissFlow call me a KissFlow wizard, which I'm pretty proud of. But no, I wouldn't say I'm a developer.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. You started off just as a way to get graphics approved, and then kind of grew from there. How has your use of a platform where you can build your own solutions, how has that grown over the years, specifically within your team, but then also speak a little bit to how it's interacted with other teams as well?
Yeah, so really it just started out as a marketing request form. We just needed to find a system to help us with our requests for like graphic materials. It went really well over the first few years, and we really got into a rhythm of, this process is really working. We were able to tweak it easily, and so we started adding a few more processes within our marketing and creative services department, um, that also did really well. And we were able, again, to look back into reporting and pull out numbers to show that this was working and we were being efficient with it. And we were improving ourselves and our like day-to-day responsibilities. So that kind of opened it up to a few of our other sister departments. So operations came to me really and asked like, hey, we have this process that we need some more formalized setup of, can you help us build something like that? And I'm like, yeah, we could do that in KissFlow. So we ended up adding, some of our operational approval processes in here as well. And it's just kind of each year we add something new on, or we're playing with new features, and able to build out our current processes even more.
Yeah. Um, you referred to being a Kissflow wizard before. What are the types of things that you feel like have started to come to you a little bit more intuitively, that you maybe at the beginning would have been a challenge, but now you can kind of see that, okay, this is possible. Like, we can get this done. Has there been anything recently that you've added in or you've changed about your system or your processes?
Um, I would say sometimes setting up like the workflow and how, like, setting up the form is one part of the
Mm-hmm.
puzzle, and then the second part is setting up the workflow of how you want that to go and who needs to approve it and what are the different steps. And at first that probably was a little bit more difficult because you kind of have to think about some formulas, like if this happens then it goes
Right.
here, and if it doesn't it goes somewhere else. So initially that was a little bit more difficult, but I think, you know, after doing it so many times, it kind of is like stuck in a rhythm. And now I can look at something and say like, oh, well, this is what's happening. So let me help you.
Yeah. Excellent. Uh, Fast forward again back to just to today, and go back to your IT team. I assume that team has also grown. What's the relationship you have with them now? Are they involved at all in the processes you've built? Are they concerned about them? Are they not concerned about them? How does that work?
Yeah, we have definitely grown, significantly grown since the initial days of KissFlow. We do have a internal IT team now, and they are pretty strict about, the platforms that we're using and what we're, doing on our computers, the information that we're putting out there into systems. But I think because we have used KissFlow for so long and it's worked really well for a large section of our company. I think they're good. Um, they're not as involved right now. I think, that's a step that we want to take, and hopefully we can expand the use of KISS Flow through. But I think because
Yeah. Do you find yourself, if you're ever networking with other creative heads, other people, do you notice even in yourself like this ability to feel like you're much more in control, or you have more freedom, or you have more authority to just kind of build what you want, and if you need to change something, you can change it. You don't have to worry about other things beyond that. Do you get a sense of kind of the level of control you're able to have over the tools you use versus your other peers in the industry?
yeah, I would say so. I don't think that a lot of our competitors necessarily have as robust of a team as we do, and I think we've been able to grow so much because we're able to kind of think through these things ourselves and really improve upon processes and what we're creating. So yeah, I'm not sure that was the best answer to that question, but
Yeah. No, it helps to just think about, again, the level of control that you're able to have over your department. It's not just that you're able to make the decisions, but you're actually able to execute them. And if you need to change something about the form, or if you need to change something about how the workflow needs to work, or if you want to change integrations into other systems, that's a big piece to be able to have and to be able to move with. Speaking of that, have
yeah.
you had any? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to expand on that. As you were saying all of that, I think our team has the freedom to kind of test things out on our
Yeah.
own,
Mm,
to see if maybe a certain process can be improved within KissFlow, or hey, like, why don't we try doing this approval process or submission request in KissFlow, see how it goes, and if it works, let's roll that out to the rest of the company.
yeah.
There's been that freedom versus trying to like find an external provider to do it for us and then
Yeah.
relying on them to make updates or changes, um, based on their timeline.
Yeah. Absolutely. Obviously, within the creative team, you have a lot of other tools you're using, whether to create those assets and collaterals, or just to be able to talk about. I don't know if you work a lot with the websites and different things as well. Have you had any chance or exposure into linking Kissflow with other tools, integrations, building out more significant end-to-end processes?
Not so much any of that yet. I think, sometimes I feel like we've barely you know, touched the surface of our, I guess, dive deep into what we can do within KissFlow.
Right.
We've done so much, but I think there's so much more that we can do, which has been nice because we have a rep that we work with and a support team that we can reach out to if we ever have questions. But haven't quite got that far in KissFlow yet.
Sure. Well, it's great to hear the story. Anytime someone's able to just on their own see a need, fill that need, and the kind of person you are, like you said, you think systematically. You already know kind of how you wanted it to work, and so it wasn't a big jump to be able to actually create that tool that you need. It's great to be able to see that. What kind of advice would you give to other people who are in a similar situation where they're wanting more control over things. They feel like things are going slow. They're relying on other people out there. At what level what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would probably be say don't be scared to try something and just see if it works. But also don't be hesitant to reach out for support. I know in the very beginning, I was hitting that support chat up a ton to help me work through, like, if I'm trying to do this, what should I do, or what does this formula mean? Um, and just knowing that I can reach out and ask for help and then get back to, testing the boundaries or
Hmm.
exploring something new. I had that opportunity. So,
Yeah. And then also, let's just imagine that the IT team had just recently given this platform to you. You were working with something else. You were still working with Sheets before, and they said, "Hey, why don't you try this ahead of time?" Do you feel like now would be a good point? Like you would be confident they would, because a lot of times IT teams are scared to give over a lot of responsibility to department heads like you, whether or not they're going to know how to deal with security issues, or whether or not they're going to be able to think systematically and build things together. Any thoughts you would give to people who are in that situation now?
yeah, I mean, I think, again, like, give the opportunity of growth. Some people, like you said, are systematic, analytical thinkers, even though they may not be in a role or a position that, is IT or, some sort of coder. Um, Give them an opportunity, and uh, that kind of takes some of the work off of you and allows them to kind of think about how they could use a certain program, and build how they need it versus that falling on an IT person.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, I've really enjoyed hearing your story. It's really encouraging just to hear how you've been able to step up and create your own things. Thanks so much for being here and sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thank you for asking.